it's interesting because I like when we first met. So that was back 2024 in September
Yeah,
in Ulu Cliff House.
yeah,
I first thought you were Australian, but then when we were
yeah.
talking, yeah, I realized that you were British. So that was interesting to me. And you know that experience was actually very fun and somewhat unexpected because like I it was my first Friday in Bali, so I arrived. I think it was Wednesday when I arrived, and so then Thursday I just spent like in my Airbnb just like chilling. And then the other day I decided to go out because I saw like that there was this party, and so when I arrived, you were standing like near the DJ booth with I remember Lorenzo and I'm not sure what the German guy's name was. Do you remember?
Oh, I actually can't remember his name, but I can see
Ah,
him. I can see him like
uh-huh.
so clearly.
Yeah. So yeah, you were standing with this other two guys, so the Italian guy Lorenzo and with the German guy, and you know I was just first somewhat like doubtful whether I should approach you or just like expect like or like wait for something to happen and like start interacting with people. But I wasn't planning on like buying any drinks or anything that night either. So I was like, there are not like many things that I can expect to happen like in the next 30 to 60 minutes. So I was like, okay, I'll just approach you guys and then like start talking with you. And it was pretty fun actually because then like more people started arriving and like the house music event started like to um get more crowded and it was pretty enjoyable. It was a nice experience. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was very spontaneous, like you said. I was in the same position as you. I was solo traveling, first time. I was a little bit nervous. You know, going out on your own into the world is very, uh, yeah, it's quite difficult, especially when you're used to like being with friends, relying on friends to chat to people. So yeah, like you, I'd seen posters for this event, and I thought, oh, let's go down. You know, it's on a cliff. It's a house music event. It had quite cool branding. Um, and I remember going down there, like there was no one there apart from some of the boys that we ended up meeting. And a bit like you, I was like, right, this is, you know, we're in Bali. The weather is amazing. We're on a cliff. There's house music. The chances of the people around us being quite similar, like there's quite a high chance, you know. And even if they're not, that's absolutely fine. You turn around and speak to the next person. So
Mhm.
it was really cool meeting all you guys. And you know, that was probably one of my favorite nights of the whole time I was there.
Mhm.
Like
For
the
me, I
music
think.
was great, the vibe was great. Like,
Uh,
and like you said, we're chatting now after a crazy interaction on the side of a cliff. Do you know what I mean?
uh,
How cool is that?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like when we met, I wasn't expecting at all to be like here talking with you. What is it, like 5 months afterwards, 4 or 5 months? So yeah, that's pretty interesting, and it was a very enjoyable night for me as well. I think I didn't party that much in Bali, because like before Bali, I was traveling with two friends, and with them I was going to more nightclubs or to bars or whatever. But when I was like by myself in Bali, I only went to that night party and then to another one in Seminyak, to the
Oh,
Motel
nice.
Mexicola. Because it's interesting. So the Mexican Independence Day is, for yeah, the day we celebrate that is like the 15th of September, and so I was looking for some place to like go party and celebrate that day, and then my girlfriend sent me like this link to a party at a Mexican like restaurant because it was not even like a proper restaurant. It was just like a space for like parties. But yeah, that was fun. But I actually enjoyed like the Cliff House more than the Mexican party because yeah, it was different. But like meeting people like you made it more interesting in some way. I think. How was Bali for you? Like, what led you like to go there? How long did you stay? Like, how was your overall experience there?
Yeah, Bali's a great place. I'd actually been traveling to Bali earlier last year. So we met in September to October, and I'd been the previous September for the first time.
Mhm.
And I loved it, absolutely loved it, loved Asia. So when I was living in Australia, for all of last year, I thought the weather got pretty bad. I was living in Melbourne, and between maybe May to September, the weather's quite dull. So I thought, right, I've got to get out of here. Like, where's the
Mhm.
warmest place I could go? Oh, let's
Uh-huh.
just go back to Bali. Um, and I needed a month because having traveled there a year ago, I knew in order to do all, in order to go to Canggu, Uluwatu, Seminyak, you need the time. You can't just be there for like 2 weeks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so that was kind of the reason. The weather was rubbish, and also I wanted a bit of a challenge. Melbourne was fun, but traveling solo was something I'd never done and something I really wanted to do. And I thought, out of all the places to do it, somewhere that's familiar is probably going to be, less of a stressful experience.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, absolutely loved it. It was just such a refreshing month. Like we've just been saying, the meeting people and seeing where it takes you has such a, it's quite addictive. You kind of just want to keep doing it,
Mhm.
keep on
Mhm.
meeting like-minded people. And yeah, when I came back to Australia, luckily the weather was better. But I'll be going back to Bali this September because of just how
Cool.
fun
Uh-huh.
it is.
Yeah. And like in places like Bali where I mean, there is a lot of space for you to move around and to go like to different areas. So you can go like to the beach and to like this surf places like Uluwatu, but then go to like Ubud and then like the whole vibe changes. But it's like different to going to other places where if you want like to experience this change, you have to go like I don't know, you have to travel for many hours or actually like get to another city. So that's an interesting part of like an island like this. Have you had like another experience? Maybe not solo traveling, but like yeah, with friends or whatever, like in some other place.
Well, we did. So when I did Bali and Asia for the first time, we started in Bali and then um, we went to Malaysia and then we went to Thailand and then we went
Mm,
to Vietnam. So I wasn't in those places for as long as I was in Bali. But let's say, for example, Vietnam, I did the Hai Giang Loop. I traveled from like the north to the south. And like you said, it was a very you were traveling, but the whole vibe was different. Vietnam was much more like forests. It was quite, the distance between different places was a bit longer. You had to get sleeper buses as opposed to Bali,
mm,
where you can just get a taxi and you're in a whole new town. But that whole experience of traveling Asia was, yeah, we were meeting people like on the daily. We were doing kind of these activities that you could only do in those places. Do you know what I
mm,
mean?
mm,
Um,
mm,
and it was just, yeah, the whole traveling vibe for me. I know it's not for everyone, and I feel like for you as well. Like it's so fun. It's like you get so much out of it, so many positives.
mm. And even if you don't like meet people who you keep a relationship with, you just keep like some memories, even if it's just like on a like individual memories. So, for example, I went hiking Mount Batur. So that was interesting because like I did meet some people like on the hike, and I like we were talking, but like we didn't become like friends or share our Instagram accounts or whatever. It was just like hiking together, and it ended up being more of like a personal memory than
Mm.
like oh yeah, the time that I met this guy or like these people. And what was so right now a friend of mine is one of the friends I was traveling with. He is still in Asia. I think he's in Cambodia. But yeah,
Nice.
he was doing this like motorcycle route in Laos, I think, where you like visit different parts of like a region in the country with a motorbike. And so you mentioned something in Vietnam, I think, like
Yeah,
not sure how you
the
called it.
high Jiang Lu.
Is it something similar to that, like with motorbikes and?
Yeah, it's one of them. You can it's like a 4-day trip and you go into the mountains. You can either
Mm,
choose to have a rider or like ride yourself.
uh,
It's probably a similar sort of vibe. I personally, like when I did the loop, I did not have a motorbike because I can't trust myself on a motorbike.
uh,
So it was really nice. I sat back on this motorbike, like tied in, and just kind of took the view in. So it was great.
Mm.
I'd recommend it. I'd highly recommend it.
Mm. Well, when I was still in Bali, I was starting to work with like the client I'm currently working with which who I am helping develop like travel personal development project. And so one of the key ideas that we're focusing on right now is like the sense of wonder and like the sense of awe that you experience when traveling. So one example is like watching a sunset in like a place like Bali, or maybe like going to a different culture and having different interactions. What has been like in these trips that you have mentioned, one experience like that where you have had this sense of like amazement or of awe with something that you have like yeah experienced.
That's a really good question. It's got my brain like whizzing. I think
Mm.
the first I'd say I did the first thing that comes to mind is the Komodo boat trip I did
Huh. Hmm.
while I was in Asia, and being on a simply just waking up and being on a boat surrounded by loads of like strangers, but obviously like friends that soon to be friends, and just being in the middle of nowhere. It's very grounding. Like I kind of woke up the first morning of the trip. It'd been quite a bumpy journey. We'd been traveling into the dark. We weren't sure where we were. And then suddenly the next morning we pulled up near a few islands that we were going to do diving on, and it was just it was so isolating, but in such a good way.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it was very. You kind of looked around and thought, "Wow, like I am right. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like I have like no internet. I'm so disconnected, but I'm just so like present and in the moment."
Uh-huh.
Um, and it was amazing. Like the morning of that first morning, the guys on the boat kind of woke us up to saying there was whale sharks. So we looked over the
Oh,
side of the
cool.
boat,
Uh-huh.
and there's this just fin. You can just see this fin going through the water, and
Mm-hmm.
half the people are really excited to get in. The other half are going, "Nah, it's not for me. I'm not going." And so
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of like torn. You're like thinking, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I did go in, um, and it was just such an amazing morning. Like just to wake up in the middle of nowhere and then go diving with some whale sharks. It was just
Mm.
like you were saying. It was that awe of traveling. It was such a unique experience that will just be like ingrained in my head like forever.
Uh, did you have like any way of recording like these experiences where it was like like people usually do with just a camera, or like maybe journaling or some other way where you were able which you were able to use like to capture yeah the experience, but also like the feelings, the thoughts that you have.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was just there. I was just more there for the moment. There was a lot of people around me that had like GoPros or they had their phones out. And you know what? With hindsight, I think if I did it again, I'd definitely maybe like journal or have some form of way to kind of record that memory. But at the time now, I was just very like I was like, right, I'm on a boat. I'm gonna get in the sea. Like it was so like you're taking everything as it comes, sort of thing. And then now we're talking about it, I'm kind of like, right, I should probably I could put this down somewhere or something just to
Uh-huh.
have it there.
Uh-huh. What do you think, like, with this experience that you had, about like the difference or the pros and cons, so to call it, between like recording experiences because it was like such an amazing experience that you want to have a way to get back to it, and like the other side of the spectrum where it's like no, like just like focusing on being fully immersed in the moment, because like while traveling you have both experiences in some way, so like you some of them you are really uh yeah, you're really committed in some way to documenting. So for example, when I was traveling with my friends, I was I had set my mind to record a lot of things because I wanted to create a blog afterwards. But then when I was like solo backpacking, I was just like I want to enjoy the moments, maybe yeah, take some pictures. I wanted to journal a lot. But yeah, how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You know, you've got it depends what your it's your purpose, isn't it? Why are you traveling? Are you A, traveling to like find yourself or meet
Mm-hmm.
people? You know, and again, it's so subjective. Like for me, I am very much trying to be more like present in the moment, like detaching from the world of like social media because that is a very, you know, everyone's on their phones and that's great, but I think especially when you're in these unique locations, being able to maybe have time to vlog if that's what you want to do, or just time to not be on your phone if that's what you want to do. Um, so it's dependent on the person. Like someone like you, if you're vlogging, you know, and you're wanting to really document it, then for sure having a camera, having maybe something that isn't your phone, I think is a really cool idea because you're not, you know, you don't get notifications on your camera, you don't get phone
Mm-hmm.
calls on your camera. It's purely to capture the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's yeah, for me, like I'm definitely trying to just be like if I'm going to Asia, say next week, I'm gonna just try and be in the moment. But if I was vlogging like you, I'd have like a camera, I'd have all the gear just in case, you know, just
Uh-huh,
ready.
uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes it's just a decision you make in a moment, like whether you actually want to record something or like capture the moment or the feeling in some way, or just like have the memories. Which, as you say, like I think depends on the person, because like I have got used to like documenting my life, whether it's just like for me or for sharing it with other people, and some people are like the opposite of that. They like just to like be fully present to remember. But yeah, I think that depends on people, like you're mentioning. And you know, I want to like shift into like I want to dive into your experience living in Australia as well. So like, yeah, how was that compared to living like your whole life in where did you live? Like in London or?
So I've lived my yeah the most of my life I've lived in just a town just outside of Birmingham,
Mhm,
just like in the Midlands basically. And
mhm,
I went to university in Nottingham, which was again really fun, very different to my like hometown.
mhm,
Um, but then Australia, man, just like completely different. Like, it's a different
mhm.
world. I mean, a lot of people think of Australia like typical Australia, right? Like there's loads of things over there that can kill you. Like people think there's spiders, koalas everywhere. Like
Snakes, yeah.
yeah, snakes like in the toilet, like outback. But to be honest, my experience of Australia was it wasn't that. It was just really good.
Mhm,
I think if I could say three things that were just super like unique, the weather was just amazing. Like
mhm,
waking up to the sun, like some days it was maybe like low 20s, some days it was like 40s, so you kind of it was hot, but some days were really hot. Um,
mhm,
and getting used to that heat. Like we go out and play football a lot. Everything out there is very outdoors because of the weather.
mhm,
Um, and I think that Australians are so relaxed. Like the weather's good, and Australians are just so chill. And I think that's because everyone's a surfer. Like everyone there
uh-huh,
is very
uh-huh.
like just zen, like all about the waves. Like, and if they're not about the waves, they're just about you know, just being outside and being present.
Mhm,
Um, and I think because I was in Melbourne, so when I was in Australia, I lived in Melbourne for the majority of the time, which is a city on the south. Um, and it was for music and the culture was just really cool. Like if you
mhm,
wanted to
mhm,
go clubbing or if you wanted to meet DJs, we lived in an area called Balaclava, which gave us access to like the city. Or if we wanted to go to the beach, it would be half an hour away. Um, so it's very accessible. Like Australia, hot weather, people are so chill, and it's so easy to get about.
uh-huh.
Um, and it was just, yeah, I am a massive advocate for it. Everyone's got to go Australia.
How about like in Melbourne specifically? How does it change compared to other cities? Maybe not in Europe. Well, have you been to the States, to like some major cities in the States, in the United States?
I've I've not been to any. I've been to Florida, but we didn't really. We didn't really go to any like big. We stopped in like Miami for like a day.
Mm. Mm.
But nah, not America really.
Mm. But well, you know how it's like that in the States, in like major cities other than New York, for example, people usually just move around with their cars. So it's not like they have like yeah, subway stations or yeah, you're British, so tubes. They don't have tubes to move around or like yeah, it's mostly people moving around with their cars. How is it in Melbourne? Like compared to either the States or like in London. I was in London for like 10 days, and it was like very easy to move around, like just using the tube.
Yeah, Melbourne is similar. Their tram network's really good.
Mm.
So there'll be trams because it's built a bit like America on a grid system. So
Mm.
these trams go through the neighborhoods, really easy to jump on and off. Um, you had trams, you've got really good trains as well. You could get the train like straight through the city. Um, and also there was roads as well. Like the roads in Australia are really good, and they're really wide as well. So we hired a car a few times, and it was really easy to get about. But the weird thing about Australia is, I think it's easy to transport everywhere, partly because like the country's massive, right? The country's like bigger than Europe, so
Mm.
you've got a lot of ground to cover. However, the population is like a third of the UK. So you've got a massive place with like hardly anyone in each spot compared to say America or the UK. So it just means that like public transport, trains, like the roads, it's just so clear, so easy to get about.
Mm.
Very different though, like I said, like very different to say London, where like you said, the tube super easy to use. Yeah, it's just super easy to get around. Really, really easy.
Yeah, because I like yeah, my reference from the States is New York again, and in New York it was again easy to move around. I only used like public transport once or twice, apart from like going to the airport and from the airport to the city. But besides that, I was like walking a lot, and that was good. How was that in Melbourne, or like compared to well, were you in Sydney and these other like big cities in Australia?
Yeah, I went to Sydney for a few. In fact, no, I did. I started in Sydney back in May, and we went down the coast, down the east coast a little bit to Byron Bay. And again, very similar to Melbourne. Like public transport, super easy to use. Um, walking wise, there's a lot of routes, because the cities are right by the coast. They're made to, you could be in Sydney. We were on the beach surfing, chilling, and then we get the bus into the city, and there'd be all this greenery. There's lots of spaces to walk around. So it's very open as well, like very easy to walk around. Because the thing is, these big cities in Australia are kind of catered for tourists as well. So you get a lot of tourists from around the world, looking at like the Opera House, the bridge, various museums. So there's a lots of parks and like public paths and all sorts. Yeah, it's very accessible.
Mm, interesting. What was the like the reason or the motivation behind like going to Australia or like, yeah, what was the story behind it?
Okay, so Australia has always been one of those places that I've thought about going, never been too serious.
Hmm.
Um, but long story short, so Ozo, the label that I run, um, back in 2021, we wanted to start releasing music. We wanted to start sharing music that we liked from artists who was making stuff that we wanted to play. So we started a free download series on SoundCloud, and we're reaching out to artists kind of all over the world, really. And by chance, a lot of them were based in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne, to be specific. Um, so it got to a point, finished university, I was thinking about traveling, and just by chance, loads of DJs that we had music signed was Australian. So we were like, what's it like? Like is it a good place to go? What's the music like? And they were just saying, yeah, it was really like really good scene, very refreshing, nothing like as big as the UK, but definitely upcoming. So we were like, why not? If we go to Australia, then we can meet some people, we can connect, and before you know it, I lived there for like pretty much a year. So
Cool. And why did you pick Melbourne over Sydney? If there were like
uh,
DJs in both of them.
yeah, there was a there's a lot of like competition. You ask someone what's better, Melbourne or Sydney, and they're never like, oh, I don't really know. It's either one or the other. Um,
Mm,
and for music, a lot of the DJs that I was meeting well, I met a few in Bali actually, and a lot of them were from
mm,
Melbourne, and they were saying that the scene in Melbourne's great. The DJs that were on Ozo, they were saying that the scene in Melbourne's great. So there was a lot more Melbourne than Sydney. Um,
mm,
People were saying Sydney was nice, but those people weren't necessarily associated with like music, or they just like traveling, or they've lived there. So
mm.
Melbourne was a bit of a no-brainer. Like I'd heard a lot of good things about it, um, and it was interesting because when I landed, I was kind of like, do I go into this with like anticipation? Like, do I expect good things, or do I just keep open-minded?
Uh-huh.
And I kept pretty open-minded for the first few weeks, but like it didn't take long. The summer came around, and everything was popping. So many things going on. It was, yeah, really fun.
Interesting. How was this? So getting back to what we were talking about, like awe and amazement and wonder while traveling. So that was when we were talking about like traveling specifically. How was this experience when you moved into Australia? So like, yeah, the difference between like just traveling for tourism and for like yeah exploration, and this other situation where you had some purpose or intention for like going to that place.
Yeah, that's a really good question again. It's funny if we talk about like awe and kind of feeling. When I traveled from the UK to Melbourne, as I landed in Melbourne, like there was a really nice sunset. I
Hmm.
got off the plane and I'd gone from like 3 degrees to like 30 degrees, and I kind of had that feeling off the plane. I was like, something's something good is going to happen here. Like
Hmm.
the weather's out, the vibes are good. And I think having that whole purpose in Melbourne, say compared to traveling in Bali, it's you kind of, as opposed to Bali, you're just traveling around, meeting people, swimming about. Melbourne was like just to the point. I knew where I was living. I knew like the places I wanted to go and visit. I knew the people I wanted to meet. A bit like us, like networking and chatting away.
Hmm.
It was much more directed on places, events, um, and 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 with the intention of DJing, with the intention of like playing music. So it made the whole experience. While some people could have been in Australia in my position and just been sightseeing or ticking the boxes of where to see, I was more digging into the local culture, like digging into
Hmm.
the local music scene. And at first, it was difficult. It was really hard because Melbourne has a big techno scene, like a big, heavy
Hmm.
techno. And for me, that's not really my vibe. I like more like slower, groovy house music.
Hmm.
Um, but after attending a few events, meeting people, networking, I finally found that local um, kind of environment and atmosphere that suited what I was looking for. And after
Hmm.
that, I didn't look back. Like the gigs were coming in, the people I was meeting were great, and like
Hmm.
even now I'm back in the UK. But I loved it. I'd be like if I could just bounce back, I would so just fly straight over.
Ah, cool. I want to get into like your music production and DJ part of like your life. But like there are many things that I want to unpack, like people you have connected with. So for example, I remember you were talking with the DJ that organized the party in Bali. So what's his name? Fede, I think, isn't it?
I think I'm really bad with names. I remember him and
Ah.
I could find him, but I can't
Uh-huh.
remember his name.
Yeah, I just remember because I was following him on Instagram like recently after I was like looking back at the yeah account of the Cliff House. But yeah, like I want to get into like how you have been connecting with other DJs and producers. I want to get like into how your creative process is because I saw that you also just released one song, so that's cool. I want to get into that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, I want to start by like just having more context and idea of how this process of getting into music production was for you. So what's the story behind it? Was it always like some sort of passion or a dream as a kid, or did it end up like just happening unexpectedly? How was it?
Yeah. So we're digging back now. We are throwing things like all the way back.
Hmm.
So if we start maybe, so essentially when I started DJing around 13, I'm very lucky. My family has, my dad really got me into it. He had all this
Hmm.
DJ equipment. We had family trips to like Ibiza. Our family listened to house music at home. It was very like it was always there when I was younger, but I never really picked up on it. Um,
Hmm.
and I learned to DJ at quite a young age, so that was there. That just kind of happened when I was younger. Fast forward to college, university, I start to get into it a bit more. Like everyone's getting a bit older, everyone's starting to like music. And I already had this background of DJing and kind of digging for music. So I started to pick it up a bit at college, play at a few house parties. Um, and because I knew how to DJ from a young age, it was
Hmm.
useful for parties because people always wanted to DJ. So they were like, "Oh, Griggy, come and play." And at this time, I have no long-term vision. I have no short-term vision. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it.
Hmm.
Um, so I did a few parties in college. Had a little residency after college, and then I went to university, and then I travelled to Nottingham to go to uni. And while I was getting involved there, again, very casual DJing, very casual, like wanting to do sets. I learned very, very quickly that if you want to stand out in this world of music, you need to contribute maybe something more. DJs are great, but if you want to bring your own music, like bring your own sound, bring your own energy, then that's the thing that's going to differentiate you from other DJs.
Hmm.
So from like maybe the age of 18, 19, production was on my mind. It wasn't a priority, but I knew I needed to maybe get into it.
Hmm.
Um, so back in Nottingham, I had two ways of seeing it. So I wanted to DJ, and I also had started Ozo as a clothing brand back at college. So me and my friend at university, we were both in the same boat. We were like, we want to DJ in Nottingham. How do we do it? There's every man and their dog is a DJ. So I said to him, I said to my friend, I was like, look, I started this clothing brand back at home, and it hasn't picked up. No one wants our stuff. Why don't we start running DJ events with the clothing, where we
Hmm.
can play whenever we want because well, it's our event.
Uh-huh.
So from that point, it kind of we started doing events. We did free parties, and instantly we were playing more because we were doing it all off our own back. We weren't looking elsewhere for people to book us as DJs.
Hmm.
So all this was going on. Like Ozo was doing well. We have our first year of uni. We do quite a few events. We have our second year of uni, but in our second year, COVID hit.
Oh, uh-huh.
Maybe February 2019, we were doing a party on a Thursday night. It was an Ozo party. We'd sold out. There was about 250, 300 people. Really, really good night. That same week, COVID hit on the Monday and everything shut.
Hmm.
Everything just went. And we were like, oh my gosh, like where do we go? Like
Uh-huh.
we've
Uh-huh.
we've built all this up over the space of 2 years. Like where do we DJ? Where do we produce? Um, and at that point, I was like, right, I've got time now. Why don't I start making music? Like I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've got all the time in the world. Like this is a good time to start doing something different. So from 2019, that was the point where I thought, if I'm gonna, like I've said, if I wanna kind of get that level up, I've always wanted to do it. I've had this history. My family likes music. This is the point to do it. And from there, I've released a track the other day, and there you go.
Mm-hmm. You know, I have a friend who it's not like a very similar story, but what is similar about his story, he's also a DJ. Is that he started in university when he was like also influenced in some way by his friends to um yeah, produce music and to be a DJ at parties. So he's from San Francisco, I think. So he's from the States. And he was studying physics, but then he started to get into like music production because a friend of him was like starting to get into it. And so then afterwards they both started like to share more music with each other. Then they went to parties and they started to become like the DJs of the parties. That's interesting because I see that happening. Well, not a lot, but I mean, it's not the first time that I hear about someone who started to get into that during college, and I think it's also because of like the culture and the yeah, mostly like the culture and the interests of people like in that stage, you know, like partying, wanting to go to like these events, and that's a very like interesting way that you started like to expand your music and your brand. Is it also like right now? Is it still a clothing brand or is it just like a music production? Also.
Yeah, so Ozo is we've got clothing, we've got a record label, and we do events. The clothing isn't the priority at the moment because I learned very quickly that clothing brands are really hard to maintain and to keep up, producing new clothes, finding manufacturers. So we actually have loads of clothes back in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have like a tracksuit set that I wear all the time. I wear to gigs, I wear like chilling at home. So it's kind of just cooking. It's waiting for the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I've got big plans for Ozo, when we are touring all over the world, and
Mm-hmm.
me and my friends, the collective are here, there, and everywhere. The clothing will just be something we wear, and then it will become more apparent. But at this moment of time, our focus more is just music releases and events at the moment.
What about your last song? So I have it over here. It's called "Still in Love with Me." So
Yeah.
how was the process of doing that song?
So this one was when I came back from traveling in Asia from 2023 to 2024. I returned to the UK in January. No, sorry, in December. And while I've
Mm-hmm.
been away, this is the joy of making music. I just had my laptop. I had my laptop and my headphones, and I was making tunes. However, back at my home here, I have like a mini studio with all my equipment in.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm at home, the quality of stuff I make is a lot. It's a lot. It happens faster, and it's usually better. Um, so when I landed from Asia, I had about 4 weeks of making music before I travelled again to Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And within that space of 4 weeks, I made a number of new tracks. And just by chance, "Still in Love with Me" was made during that period of time.
Mm-hmm. But then like I thought it was like a recent release.
Yeah, so this is the interesting thing about music. So, "Still in Love with Me" was made in 2024. However, there's a lot of steps between like, it's a bit of a rabbit hole with releasing music. You can either just have it for yourself and release it on your own, or you can look to get it signed to a record label, which I did. Um, and there's pros and cons to the whole process, but for "Still in Love with Me," I made it and I knew it was a good track. Like, I just felt it. I really enjoyed making it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, why not share it to the world? Why not get it signed on a decent label? Um, and this is funny, actually. This the way we're going into this. So the label it got signed to was Danzu Discs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now the label Danzu Discs was a label that I had in my mind for last year, sorry. I was DJing a lot of gigs and a lot of events, and the music I was playing out to people was off the record label. So I thought, this is a cool label. I'd love to be associated with this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And then yeah, by chance, maybe September 2024. No, maybe not September. Yeah, maybe actually September 2024. A guy at the record label reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, Griggy, hope you're good. I've seen, you've been releasing some music. Like, have you got anything that you want to get signed?" And I
Mhm.
sent over "Still in Love with Me," and then here we are. It got released. What? Yeah, earlier this week.
Oh, cool. How has this process of like developing your career as a DJ and a music producer been like in this sense? Because like this sounds like it came very naturally and like organically in some way because of
Mm.
like the work you were putting out there and the interests that that you have. So like being interested in this label, like how has that process of like growing as a DJ and as a producer been for you? Like, do you usually do things like very intentionally and with a plan, or is it mostly like out of like creativity and like wanting to connect with people and to share things? How's that for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The world of music and being a music producer, being a DJ, there's no path for it. No one can jump on the 9 to 5 of a DJ. It just, well, unless you're working in like a restaurant or whatever. But for
Hmm.
me, my background at uni was I did a degree in law and I had a master's in business.
Hmm.
So for me, like this journey has been really interesting. It's always started from a passion, just a love of music, a love of house music, with no kind of long term goal, no sort of position I want to be in, just purely done it because I enjoy it. And having been at uni and like I said, been making music in COVID, coming out of uni, still making music. Um, it's been like a passion project basically
Hmm.
up until maybe 2023. It was again this passion project. I was making stuff because I like it. I'm a very naturally creative person anyway. um and having Ozo throughout this whole process of this brand of mine has almost been like a just a template for me to throw anything at, a bit like you want to learn your production in music. um and you've got this podcast as the coffee lounge. The idea of the lounge is your template to be creative and to just there's no end goal and there's no money trying to be made or whatever. It's just stuff that you want to do, but you can almost have it all in one little package.
Hmm.
For me that's Ozo, and it was a clothing brand in this package. Then now it's a record label and events. And from the music production was like a lot of my first releases was through Ozo, because it was me. I didn't have to get it to a label. I didn't have to. There was no barriers to entry as such. Um,
Hmm.
but this whole journey, maybe 2022, I was doing my normal, just making tunes, teasing them on social media, and I teased a few tracks while I had a full-time job. Um,
Hmm.
on TikTok. And beforehand, I hadn't really shared any of my music, but these few little videos I put out like got some crazy traction. Like had thousands of views within like a few days. People commenting on TikTok going, "Oh, like release this, like
Hmm.
track ID, like all this and that." And I was like, "Wow!" I was like, and the stuff I'd made was nothing special. It wasn't anything I went, "Wow, this is amazing." I just made it,
Hmm.
and that was kind of the beginning of where I am now. This process of like being able to do it more and more as a career, as you put it. Um, but it's been a combination. Like now I've got plans. Now I've kind of seen the vision. I've got places I'd like to be, but I'm still that foundation of just yeah, just going with the flow, just seeing what comes of it. There's never really been um like I don't know, like like in a career, like you might want to get
Uh-huh.
to a certain level of promotion, and then that's it. You're finished. For me, there's
Hmm.
never been that. It's just been purely led by kind of creativity and passion, and still is. To be fair, it still is.
What about the connections that you have made with like record labels and with other music producers and DJs? Like, has it ever happened that some of them have like made a suggestion or a proposition for you to like grow more professionally in some way, like also or your own path, like compared to what you're doing currently, which is like, as you said, just like a passion project?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of people that have given like suggestions and a lot of people that have maybe proposed things. But like I said earlier, it's the world of music is very um, it's not transparent. You know,
Hmm.
there could be artists that could be doing really well, that look like they're doing really well, but they're signed in agreements that maybe aren't that good, or they're just a bedroom DJ, so they've got a full time job on the side. It's very I've had chats with people in the past who have been like, oh, you know, Ozo could do this, Ozo could do that, and I've definitely taken things on board. Um, but I think with my background in like I've got a master's degree, like I've got a law degree, I kind of know how much effort it takes for businesses to grow and develop. Um, there's always been a very loose kind of like framework to everything, but it's always been just very open minded. It's just very,
Hmm.
you know, like if the right opportunity arises with maybe a connection, then great, but very happy just doing things on my own like accord as such and just seeing kind of how they come to be.
Mm. Like talking about this, how well I also saw that you just had your first like headline gig. Just like I'm not sure if it was like a few weeks ago or how long
Yeah,
ago it was.
it was last weekend.
Oh yeah, so there you go. But yeah, how was like how was the experience of like being booked in that and like actually performing there and like how does that relate in your mind to this uh approach to it of being a passion project?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was actually crazy because this booking had come when I was in Australia. So
Mm,
again, I was living in Australia and I had no real plan when to come back to the UK. But then by chance, I had an email from the event called Soundwaves London, and they said, "Look, hey Griggy, we want to have you as the headliner for our event in February or the first of March. Are you interested?" And I was like, man, like for sure. London sounds
mm,
good. Headliner sounds even better. So at that point, I went from like just cruising in Australia to being like, right, like this is a reason to come home. This is a reason to
mm,
come and DJ. So I've been excited about that gig last weekend for a long time. And when it eventually came round, um, it was a really interesting feeling of walking into a venue. Um, as a name that people kind of recognize and they kind of know you as such. You know, you might have someone like double look you and then be like, "Oh, hey, like I love your music."
mm,
Um, in comparison to maybe previous DJ gigs I've played as a DJ, just to fill an hour or just to
mm,
close a night, you know, just to do an event in say Nottingham, a student event, and I'm DJing as Griggy, but nobody knows who Griggy is. Griggy could be Jeff. Griggy could be like anyone.
mm.
They're just there for the because it's a Friday
For the
night and
music.
they yeah, for the yeah, or even just to go out and just get drunk, whatever. But yeah, the
Hmm.
experience at the weekend was really special. Like I was playing a few of my own songs. I played my track "Take Me Higher" and people were singing. I've never had that. Like it was crazy. I was there just like whoa. I was like, this is amazing.
Have you got any other events booked for the next month?
I don't. I've got absolutely nothing planned. I've got potential um gigs coming up around the UK. Nothing like on paper yet, but I've got a good feeling. There's a few things I'm going to be doing soon. I've got loads of music that I'm making, and it's a bit like what we've been talking about. My approach is just very uh, just optimistic and seeing what happens. So nothing yet, but I think things will definitely come soon.
Mm, interesting. Now I would like to get into like the technical part of like music production, which for you might be like even second nature. From what you were telling me, that it has been something that you've been doing like for many years, and it has also been part of like things that your family likes. But like one problem or one issue that I have faced over time as I have maybe thought about like getting into music production or things like that. I mean, I haven't ever like done it properly or like fully immersed myself into like trying to produce music or like do some DJ stuff or whatever. But like I have had that intention. But like one issue that I have faced is that I cannot really find or I haven't been able to find like the technical things to it. So like to get started, I want to like know like which platforms I should use. Yeah, how yeah, like just the very basics of the technical aspects of how to get started. So like yeah, for someone like me or for someone like trying to get into this, what would be like your technical suggestions in some way like to just get started like getting creative with this?
Yeah. So for anyone starting music production, I'll just say how I did it because I can
Sure.
only
Yeah.
talk from experience. But there's a few softwares out there that you can use that are really simple. The one I used is called GarageBand. GarageBand you get on like all MacBooks, any Apple products. It comes with GarageBand, so it's free pretty much.
Mhm.
And it's a very simple software where you can load in like samples, you load in drum loops, you load in instruments, and you just it's like anything. You just load it up on your computer and you just drag
Mhm.
things, click buttons, and just mess about with it. That's how I started. Um, I had the thing is with music, with house music, for example, there is foundational like structure. Like
Mhm.
the beats in house music is 4 by 4 beats. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very the theory behind it is super simple. Um,
Mhm.
and for me, I'm quite lucky. So I've got a background I played the violin for like quite a few years.
Mhm.
Um, so I have like a musical trained ear, which I didn't know was going to be useful in any way whatsoever until probably recently. Um, but forget that for a second. Yeah, so getting into it, GarageBand, get on GarageBand, super easy to use. And alongside GarageBand, YouTube tutorials, because YouTube has everything these days. You could
Mhm.
literally copy a YouTube tutorial that says how to make house music on GarageBand and just copy everything that's done on it, and then you'll just have structures and layouts that you just use, and the whole journey of music production is trial and error. You're
Mhm.
not going to learn it overnight. It's a bit like a language. You have to keep at it, um, to get somewhere with it, and it won't happen overnight. I made music for like 3 years on and off
Mhm.
before anything became of it. So technically, just start using GarageBand and use YouTube tutorials as a guide, and that will be a really good start to just your journey in whatever sort of music you want to kind of make.
What about the part of like sharing your music? I've seen that you use SoundCloud and like five other platforms that I hadn't seen before. But like, yeah, how do you manage this?
So there's levels to it. So if you want to share a track, if you want to share a beat you've made, I am a big fan of SoundCloud. Like I love it. It's so easy to use. It's as simple as you make an account and then you can drag your MP3 files or your WAV files or your audio files onto the platform. Um, and you get a certain amount of hours free before you have to pay for anything. So SoundCloud is really easy to use, or even YouTube. But it really depends on your level as a producer. You might not be ready to release music as such to the
Hmm.
world, whereby um, well, that I'd be using, like I'd be maybe teasing it on like TikTok or social media to get a feeler for it. But that's a long way down the line compared to starting to produce. It's
Hmm. No, no, no. Yeah, makes sense because like part of this can be just like a project that you do like out of fun, and that like maybe you just want to share with your family or friends or whatever. But like, yeah, actually sharing it with some like bigger intention for people that you don't know to like listen your music. Like maybe TikTok is a good path as you're saying, so that like you can leverage this tools that help you not necessarily go viral, but like just reach new people. Which I mean,
Yeah, reach an
no,
audience.
yeah, no, sure, and that happens, of course, with these, with podcasting, as well as I have like experience with blogging in general. Um, and well, what about like this part of booking events? So as you've said, like you like this headline gig that you had, they reached out to you, so that's how that happened, and that came as a result of you just like putting your work out there. But like, have you ever had more of an intentional approach to like being booked in events or something like that?
Yeah, so when you're trying to get booked, there's various different ways you can go about things. You can simply share your email to promoters, or you can contact people via social media. The way that I got contacted was I leave my contact details on all my social media platforms for people to book me. Now, it's a really interesting thing you've brought up actually, because when you're as a producer, as a DJ who wants to be booked for their music, like I was in London, to have that happen more consistently, you can look at getting signs to like booking agents or to companies that basically push you to other events to be booked. Um, so it's a yeah for me at the moment. For me, it's simply just an email that you can find on my social media pages. But in the wider world of music, there's big companies that will have like an artist roster. So say just for in theory, you have Coffee Lounge and it's a DJ event, and you have
Mhm.
five of your friends who are DJs within your roster. So you reach out to places all over the world and go, look, this is our brand. Like this is an artist with all of his music. Like, do you want to book him? Yes or no?
Mhm.
That's like the next level of professional professionalism that I definitely want to get to as an artist. But also for me, I'd love to run my own like artist thing in that way with Ozo. So
Mhm.
I've got a few friends who are all producers, all DJs, and we all play together. For us to grow Ozo as a business, and us to have like the power and ability to basically be approached by people like I was approached and
Mhm.
send artists out. That's just like an idea that I want to do, but that's kind of like a little taster into what it how it works.
Mm. Yeah, the part of like using the services of like agents or companies makes sense, because like that's when you like someone like me who doesn't really know much about like music as an industry, like that sounds like a very intuitive and obvious like path, like just like hiring someone that can help you like make these connections with other people. I would like to like start wrapping up this part of like the music production and DJ thing. Like one way I think would be fun for us to do it is for you to share like an experience where something maybe unexpected happened while you were performing, or while you were like producing something, or in the path of like building also, like yeah, just some story of an unexpected or fun experience that you have.
Okay, I have one. I have a story.
Sure.
Um, it's a very brief one. However, when I was in Nottingham and it was 2022. I had a full-time job and I'd worked my way very quickly to work this job from home. So I was working at home basically. Well, I was working. I
Hmm.
was doing my work, but also producing music. Um, and one morning, before any of my music had really gained significant traction, I was making a track. And for the technicality of music, it was very simple. I had a piano sound um, on one layer, and I had a vocal on the other. So I had two pieces to this music. It was so simple. Um, and I started playing the piano, and this is how I actually made my biggest track, "Take Me Higher."
Hmm.
I put this piano out, and I'd made it. It was a for people that know music, it was just a sample, a very simple pattern melody, and I dragged this vocal in, and it said like "Taking Me Higher" or whatever, with the piano. And I pressed play and listened, and I was like, within 5 seconds, I stopped the computer, and I was like, wow. I was like, that's good.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's very simple, but that is good. There's something there that's gonna do well. I hadn't even made the song. I literally made 5 seconds of the song. Um,
Hmm.
but there was something in the vocal I'd used and the piano I'd used that had something in it, sprinkled with something. Anyway, long story short, I teased it on social media. It had thousands of people telling me to release it, and well, from this conversation now, it's probably had about 4 million plays.
Oh, uh-huh. 4 million plays amongst like all the platforms that you have, or like just in one platform?
Yeah, between like SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music,
Hmm.
it's by far. But this is the thing; it was a crazy feeling to have that before I'd shared the music. Um, and even now, when I talk about "Take Me Higher," um, I like the track. It's definitely not my most technically, musically talking musical like production. It's very simple. Like,
Hmm.
and it's kind of for me, it has a bit of a bigger message. Like with music and even with life, like less is more. It was
Hmm.
literally a piano and a vocal that I put down one morning while working from home, and that was it. I was like, wow. I was like, that's a crazy,
Uh-huh.
and it, like I said, it lasted. It didn't last too long, but that feeling of making music that morning, I will always remember that because it was just like, whoa, that's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, and it was something like really unexpected and unplanned, which sometimes makes like these experiences more feel more authentic in some way, more the word synchronicity.
Mm,
So yeah, like that, like there are synchronicities that where it's like unexpected things come together to like create something like really great in some way. Like, and it became like your most famous song. So that's great. Um, and like just to start wrapping up the conversation, there are three like questions that I like to ask, or three last topics that I wanna like dive into. As I usually
yeah,
do in my episodes. And so the first is like, what's a book or a movie, a music album, probably in your case, or a song or whatever that you have been like enjoying recently, or like yeah, vibing with recently?
yeah, cool question. I like that. Um, so I listen. Yeah, I've been vinyl digging recently. I've been getting into some books. Um, there's a book that I've recently bought, and I've only started reading it like a few nights ago, and I might get the name wrong, but I think it's called um, "A Light of Life." Um, and this book basically is about yoga, and it's
Hmm.
about how it's more about not the physical side of yoga, but more about like the mental and the theoretical side of yoga.
Hmm.
um, and it's a really interesting book. This is kind of the vibe I'm kind of on at the moment, having been traveling and been to Bali and really getting
Uh-huh.
into my fitness. This book is basically this uh, journey into how to do yoga and how it really helps your like mental health, and how it can be very good for just like a foundation in life. Again, I've only just brought it, but I'm really excited to get into it. And I
Hmm.
definitely, if anyone is like on that sort of vibe, I defo recommend getting into it because I'm only a few pages in, and already I'm reading lines and I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is some really interesting stuff.
Uh-huh. How is it called again?
I think it's called a light on life. You might have to double check that.
Light
Um,
on Life. Is it by Bakey BKS Iyengar? I think that's the name that appears here.
um,
But yeah, I think I found it. But yeah, cool. I'll check it out. Sounds interesting.
yeah, it's called. I found it. It's called Light on Life by
Hmm.
BKS Iyengar. That was
Mm.
it. Really, really, defo would recommend.
Cool. Well, then the next thing is what's something that you have like discovered or learned recently that you have found like value in or that is like interesting that you would like to share? Like it can be about like any topic, like not even related to what we have already been talking about.
Okay. What have I learned recently? Um, maybe not something I've learned as such, but something that I learned a while ago, and it's something that I've just mentioned about music.
Hmm.
This idea that like less is more. I think it's a really interesting. It could be with everything. This could be like a
Hmm.
whole lifestyle thing, with the idea of money, with about time, and about for me specifically music production. Like sometimes when you're learning something, like you want to get into it, you might feel like you need to be the most technically gifted producer ever before you release anything, or it could be with art that you make. But at the end of the day, the things that seem to like have a resonance with people is the simple things in life.
Hmm.
Music could be art, could be the way you speak to people, but less is more. I really like the idea of just kind of being very simple, simplistic. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's what I've got to say.
Cool. No, no, yeah, I like that idea, that like philosophy for life in some way. Um, then the
Yeah.
last thing is, as I told you, like this podcast is called the Coffee Lounge, and so one thing I like to ask is like, what's your favorite coffee bean or like preparation or method? Like, what's your favorite place to like drink coffee at? It can be like a specific coffee shop that you know somewhere in the world, or like some situation that you like to drink coffee, for example, yeah, like reading or whatever. So like, yeah, how does that look in your life?
I'm a big fan of coffee. I'll have to back you there. I love coffee. I go through phases of liking different coffees, and um, I've got a sweet tooth, so I'm a big fan of like mochas, chai
Mm.
lattes, latte with a bit of syrup. My last memorable coffee was in Melbourne at a shop called Truffles
Mm.
in Balaclava. I've got to shout them out because their
Mm.
chai lattes are unbelievable. I'd have one every other morning. If you get there before 9 o'clock, it's only $4.10, which is UK's like £2.5. So coffee's super cheap, but their chai lattes are unbelievable. So, so good.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any plans of going to Australia like anytime like in the next few months, but once I go, I'll keep this place in mind. Yeah,
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
is there anything else you'd like to add about like any topic that we covered or about like your current work or ideas or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'd say thank you. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. I've not really done a podcast like this before. So
Mm.
the fact that we met on such a short, random night in Bali, and now we're talking across the world, is special, isn't it? I think it's a really, really cool thing. And I've got to, shout out this podcast you've got. I think it's going to be really, really good. So yeah, pleasure. Thank you for having me. Like at this point, yeah, really enjoyed it.
Cool. No, yeah, it was great. And actually, you're the first DJ or music producer that I like talk with for this podcast. Like in this sense, because like for my last podcast, I talked with the friend I told you about, like the one who studied physics and then became a DJ. But that was mostly it. And this is something that I wanna like get into because it's like a personal interest. I might not be like starting to produce music like maybe in the next weeks or months or whatever, but maybe sometime in the future when I'm like in some stage in my life where I'm like, okay, now I want to like dive into this like with more detail and like passion. But yeah, like I enjoy the conversation as well. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, no worries, man, and all the best. If you ever need any help with production, just let me know because I'd be more than happy to help you or just put you in the right direction, sort of thing.
Cool. Thanks, man.